Welcome to part 5 in the final video in our negotiating series. And today we're talking about a leaseback. So Joanne, what is a leaseback?
So when you are a buyer and you have flexibility in your housing situation, what you might consider in your offer is offering the seller a leaseback. And what that means is that you then offer the people who are selling the home a use and occupancy, meaning that they can stay in the home for up to 60 days after closing without impacting your financing. If you are paying cash, you can do a leaseback or a use and occupancy for as long as you want or as long as the seller needs. And so this is another great way to use your flexibility in your housing situation to make your offer look better than somebody else's.
Yeah, and when you're buying a home in Concord, what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of sellers have a lot of equity in their homes and they need access to that equity to buy their next home. And they may not want to use a bridge loan. So what they can do is they may look for buyers who are willing to offer them a leaseback. So what that means, you close on the home in 30 days. Once you close, the deed's recorded, the seller gets their money. Now the seller is going to need that money to buy their next home, but they know that that transaction is going to take them 60 days. And that's where this tool becomes so powerful. Now it's important to know that a tenancy is not established here. This is strictly a use agreement. And there are terms that will be put into the use agreement by the attorneys that have very steep penalties that if the seller does not move out of your home, they might start accruing $1,000 a day penalty. So it gives a high enough threshold that people say we will, because the biggest concern that buyers have is that, like, what if the seller doesn't find a home? But no seller is going to want to pay you $30,000 to stay in this home because they can't find another property. They will find an apartment where they can spend $5,000. But it's a great tool. It's not for everybody.
But if you have a situation where you have flexibility on your move time, perhaps you're closing on this home before your lease ends. Like maybe you're a first-time buyer or you're in interim housing. And maybe you have 60 days overlap, right? So you may be able to close on this home and then allow the seller to stay. Most of the time, these use and occupancy agreements are short. They're 2 to 3 weeks, or they just cover some period of time where the seller is trying to do a simultaneous closing on their next property, and you give them some layup of time to be able to make the transition. Maybe they got to paint or something in the other house. Having flexibility does not necessarily take dollars out of your pocket, but it can make your offer more impressive to the seller. How do we find this out, Tom, if this is an advantageous way to go?
We ask great questions. The key to being a great negotiator is to ask great questions and then listen. So one of the things that Joanne and I always do is we call the selling agent and we talk to them. If they're a Concord agent, the likelihood is we've worked with them before, and we just talk about how can we prepare an offer that is advantageous to the seller. What do they need? Because maybe it's late May and the seller needs that extra month to get the kids done with school because they don't want them to miss the end of the school year, because it's so important. Maybe they have a senior graduating, but closing because they need to buy that next home is really important. Asking the questions, being able to deliver can be so important. Now, not every seller needs or wants a leaseback, but we want you to know it's another tool in the toolbox that, if it works for your scenario, can help be the difference between getting a house and not getting a house. I remember last year, Joanne and I sold a house in Concord. There were 3 offers on the table, and 2 of the offers were $25,000 higher than our client's offer. But we were willing to offer them the leaseback that they desperately needed, and they took our offer for less money because the terms were better.
So it's another important strategy that you can use in the toolbox for making your offer more advantageous and being a stronger negotiator on your behalf.
Yes. So this concludes our series of negotiating from a buyer's perspective on the offer. And thank you for watching our 5-part series.
Cheers.